Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at landing in turbulence, especially with small aircraft. Now for those of you not familiar with turbulence, there's a lot of different causes of turbulence. At the very least, you have things where winds are changing speeds. Of course, you can also get turbulence from strong updrafts. For example, I'm sitting here on a giant piece of nice dark asphalt. And as you know, of course, during the summer, as this thing heats up, that heat's got to go somewhere, and it wants to go up, which means bumpity bump, 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 bump. We're sitting here today at Pittsfield Airport. This is up in western Massachusetts. I picked this runway because I've got a lot of experience on it in the real world, and the weather conditions I created here are actually the same weather conditions as I was flying just the other day, so I thought it'd be kind of fun. So let's go ahead and run through this. Let's go get the airplane taken off. Now, the first thing you have to know when you're dealing with turbulence is you have to know just how bad the turbulence is. If you look over there on the right, you can see the windsock is having a bit of a time of it, and it's definitely not a consistent speed. You can also look down at your instrumentation. You probably notice the fact that I'm not keeping a consistent speed. Now, when you go to lift off in turbulence, you always want to make sure you wait just a little longer than usual. So if there's a sudden decrease in speed, it doesn't cause your aircraft to stall right out of the sky. Normally, when we're taking off in this plane, we're pulling back right around 55. Notice I kept it on the ground just a tiny bit longer so that I could preclude the thing suddenly running out of lift there and go directly down to the ground. One of the nice things too, of course, is we can always take advantage of ground effect, which can kind of keep us kind of low to the ground. It's still pretty safe, but obviously we want to be careful. Next thing we want to do is, as we're climbing here, we want to remember that we are going to be climbing on our VY speed. Obviously use VX if you have to, but remember, if you're going to be climbing on your VY speed, then you're going to be a little bit bigger danger of course, somebody stalling the plane out. I'm sorry, if you get your VX speed, you're going to be much closer to your actual stall speed. So again, that could be very tricky. Now, the pattern altitude here is 2,200 feet. So what we're going to do is we're going to get up to 1,900 feet right there. And then we're actually going to do right traffic today. Now, you're probably saying, right traffic, gross. I agree. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah, I hate right traffic patterns, but unfortunately, because of where I normally fly out of, you always end up having to fly them. Now, this is no exception. Notice the plane bouncing around on us. Nothing unusual there. Obviously, we don't want to get too far above our maneuvering speed, or otherwise we have other issues, but we're just basically kind of popping over here directly into the downwind. We'll go ahead and pull the throttle back just a teeny tiny bit, and we're going to keep coming around. There's a 2,200 feet right there. I'm just going to let the plane kind of settle. It's going to do its own thing. There's really not a lot we can do around about with it. There's good old-fashioned runway 26 right off to the side there. I'll go ahead and bring the plane gently over. Again, we have a bit of a crosswind in addition. So what are we going to do differently? One thing we're going to do differently is we're not going to use full flaps. If we use full flaps, we're going to have a lot harder time. The other thing we're going to do differently is we're not going to land at 60 knots. You're probably saying, wait a minute, we always land at 60 knots. Why not? Well, we're going to be landing faster than usual because remember, if the airplane hits the wrong gust, you are suddenly part of the ground. So we want to be, I got a bit of a twang there. You want to be very cautious of that. So I'm going to pull the throttle back. I'm going to go ahead and bring in our first click of flaps. And we're just going to play the normal game we play where we're just basically sitting here looking out for the end of that runway. Remember, it's going to come pretty soon, and there it is. Go ahead and bring myself into my base leg here. Again, keeping the power down. Now I'm going to pause right here. So what is our approach speed going to be? So if you go to the weather real quick, you can see our current, we're too high for that. Let me click on it. We are 290, 11 gusting 16. So that means that our gust is 5 knots greater than our regular speed here. So we want to take half round up. So in this case, half of 5 is going to be 2.5 plus 1, which is going to get you to 3. So instead of approaching at 60 knots, we're going to be approaching at 63 knots, which is basically half the gust factor, if you want to think about it. Now, this is relevant whether or not you're an airliner. It doesn't matter if you're a little propeller jockey like us. Does not make a difference. So let's go ahead and pull ourselves up to final. I'm going to bring that nose up. We're getting a little quick here. Remember, the goal of any traffic pattern is to get there very safely. Anybody like that ski slope right off our 12 o'clock there? Look at the bumps. Oh, duh. Now that's what I call slow. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get the closest we can get ourselves to about 63 knots here. Now, I'm never going to be able to get this thing exactly on 63 knots. Now, you're sitting there going, oh, what about flaps 30? No, don't touch flaps 30. Don't touch that. If you touch that greater flap setting, you're going to find that you're going to be fighting the airplane more than you'd like to. Now, the other thing we want to remember, too, is when we do come in contact with the ground, the turbulence did not stop. So if we keep flying this thing as if we were just going to let stall and kind of land, we're getting slow, give some power there, let the nose come down a bit. If we just do that, you're just going to end up bouncing on the ground, and then we keep going. So what we're going to do differently, too, is instead of coasting in, we're actually going to keep the power in during the landing so that we have control of the airplane at all times during the approach. You can also see we're dealing with a bit of crosswind here. So we've got the throttle about 2,800 RPM. We'll let the nose come down. So we're going to come across the runway, and I have not pulled the throttle back. We're just going to play with the airplane. Fly the plane down to the ground. Now pull the throttle back. Keep the plane on the ground, nose down, ground us. Easy on the brakes. And we're going to go ahead and kill those last couple notches of flaps to make it nice and soft. Now, the key points you wanted to pay attention to. First of all, my approach speed was a little bit quicker, other than the part I got a little slow, because remember, we want that gust factor built in. Second thing you notice is I did not pull the throttle off until we were on the ground, which is a little different, but it enabled me to fly the plane all the way down to the ground. And because I could fly the plane all the way down to the ground, I always had control. And then the final point, of course, was using less than the maximum number of flaps in order to facilitate a safer landing. Other than that, enjoy.